Well, joining us now is Drew Dilkens, Mayor of Windsor, Ontario, and with him Andy Schor, the Mayor of Lansing, the state capital of Michigan. Mayor Dilkens, Mayor Schor, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Listen, Mayor Schor, I'm going to begin with you because the United Auto Workers, the head of that union, is supportive of the Trump tariffs, buying into this idea that duties will actually lead to a greater auto presence in the United States. But you don't buy that. Why?
My concern is affordability. When you increase tariffs, it's going to increase the price of cars. The latest estimate I heard, I know from one of my U.S. senators, Senator Gary Peters, was $10,000 per car. In Lansing, we make something like $48,000 a year on average. When you increase a price of a car that much, that has a real impact. And it's not just Lansing, it's cities all over the country. If people can't afford to buy cars, less cars are going to be bought. If less cars are going to be bought, then we're going to produce more at the factories. I really don't want to see a shift be lost at either of our two factories, and that's what happens when cars aren't being bought. We're seeing the Camaro end, we're seeing new lines, but we need to make sure that people are buying the cars so our auto workers can have the jobs. So that's a big concern of mine, having two auto plants in Lansing.
Mm-hmm. Is that concern, Drew Dilkens, a comfort to you in a certain way? Because that does create an argument for a trade without tariffs.
Well, I think that's fundamental to the entire conversation that we had today, that in this conversation, there's no such thing as a Canadian or a Mexican or an American. When it comes to trade, we're all North American. We've created systems and an economy that is reliant on each other for very good and valid reasons and good economic and business reasons. And all we're trying to do is figure out how to grow that economy, spend all of our time and energy as leaders of our communities, helping to grow our respective communities, which is good for the GDP in all countries, but ultimately good for families and livelihoods of workers in our communities.
Mm-hmm. You know, Mayor Schor, you hinted a little bit about losing a shift, but overall, if these tariffs were to come into place, whatever the level that tariff is, what would that actually mean for your community?
But again, it could be loss of jobs. So the argument that I've heard is if you tariff, then the jobs are going to be onshored. Well, what I had been saying up until today was that I don't see onshoring of new facilities leaving Canada, coming to Michigan. It's like a $2 billion venture. I just don't see that happening. Today at our summit that we were just at, we actually had an expert talk about how it doesn't really work that way, that the numbers don't play out because we are so interdependent with supply chains between the three countries that it just doesn't play out that way. So now I have experts kind of agreeing with what I've been saying, which is it's just going to be an increase in cost. It's not going to be an increase in jobs because we are re-onshoring. Plus, we have such great relationships with our Canadian partners that hurting them doesn't really help us. Taking from them, this is not zero sum. Taking from them doesn't help us. Taking from them hurts all of us.
Mm-hmm. Mayor Dilkens, what about Windsor? What happens to your city if these tariffs come into place?
Well, there's no doubt that a 25% tariff, as suggested, would have a very catastrophic impact on my community, which is heavily reliant on automobile manufacturing, parts manufacturing, tool, die, and mold. In fact, we have over 1,000 manufacturers just in the Windsor-Essex area alone. And so there's a lot of families that rely on a smooth and functioning system that's been in place really for almost 100 years, but more robustly since the 1960s. They rely on these systems to put bread on their table and pay their mortgages. And so we need to support those folks. No one wants to see this happen. At the end of the day, again, we're talking about wanting to build our communities, not find ways to tear them down. And there are in my mind, two underlining fallacies to the president's argument that we really need to talk about. And that is that there are hundreds of billions of dollars of capital just waiting to be deployed by automotive manufacturers and parts suppliers to move their operations to the United States. And even if that money were available, you need to have the people and the workers to be able to support all of those businesses. The United States is at around 4% unemployment, which by most economist standards would say that's full employment in an economy. And so you have to have those two things working together. I just don't see it happening, which is why, coming together today and having these conversations, all three mayors in all three levels of all three countries, is really important because we're on the ground closest to the people, closest to the businesses. We understand the economics and how this works. And we just hope that there are smart, sensible, bright people who get to the smart president of the United States and convince him that this is a bad course of action.
I wonder how possible that is, Mayor Schor. You know, you live in a state that voted Trump back in November, and I do wonder, despite what you're saying here, how many allies do you have in that fight, or is this an uphill battle for you to sell this message?
I think we have allies. We were here today. I mentioned not just American Canadian or U.S. Canadian and Mexican mayors. It was bipartisan. We had 6 American mayors, 6 U.S. mayors, and it was Democrat and Republican. So I think that this is going to have equal impact when you have the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, when you have the mayor of Rochester Hills, Michigan, San Antonio, Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana. These are all different persuasions. And I think the answer is we all have to tell our stories and talk about the impacts. You know, for me, President Trump won Michigan. And this is how it's going to affect those people that voted for him in Michigan, if that's what he's caring about. We also have some members of Congress that have won, you know, just barely, and they're going to be up for election again in a year and a half. And you know, if you have people that are affected by these tariffs negatively, they're going to remember that, and they're going to ask their members of Congress to take action. So we're talking to our senators, we're talking to our representatives, and we're hoping that they are talking to the president and his people to talk about, you know, how can we better move forward to make sure that we are not negatively affecting those people that voted for him and everyone else.
Well, I appreciate the conversation this afternoon, this evening. To both of you, Mayor Dilkens, Mayor Schor, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.